So let's go. Okay, so I used for the last 8 years that I'm part of IBM, selling that portfolio, I really try to focus on one message, which is really the guiding principle on the way that we try to go on the market. And this really has to do with the fact that what we really try to propose on the market is agility. So it's really business agility is delivering some way to accelerate the pace of customers going through the digital transformation, but also infuse as part of that, because IBM has invested heavily into that topic decades ago. Infuse what I call consumable AI, and that means there are two ways actually to consume AI. Either you go for AI platforms where you need data scientists in order to really benefit from these. Either you go for AI which is already fit for purpose, which has been already tailored to specific tasks, and therefore the adoption curve, the initial investment in time and money is way shorter. So if we look at really what we try to do, and the reason why actually the news and what we are going through the last, I would say, 18 months now is really giving us credit, is the fact that no matter how big you are, the history is on the go, but I can demonstrate that through a very quick slide just after that. The whole idea is that you can be extremely big into your own domain, and that's what our customers are, but at the same time being extremely fragile, and that's what this crisis and the pandemic has shown actually. So without going through every single one of these elements, one of the topics that I want to show is the fact that not having heavily invested in the last 3-4 years, I would say, into digital, might have turned into a disaster for some companies. When you look at Hertz, which is a company like IBM of about 100 years on the market, which was segment leader in what they were doing, their model being focused on delivering cars through face-to-face relationships has been tremendously impacted when out of a sudden the airports were no longer available, when most of the shops had to shut down, etc. So how do you interact with your customers? How do you deliver these cars when everything goes through physical contact? One success story of the here a local one, but got exported, is Le Pain Quotidien. These bakeries were really, they were about to open their 100th shop in the US at the moment of the crisis, and in April, just after a month after the pandemic started, they had to shut down their economical operations in the US and sell actually the brand over there in the network for more or less the cost of the pen which was used to sign the agreement. So the last one that I want to also share with you is Primark, that everyone knows. Primark, actually the only thing that you can buy on the Primark website is gift cards. That's the only thing that you will find online. And why? Because, yeah, they move so fast, the stock, depending on the shops, here and there, that you can imagine that it's extremely difficult for them to maintain that, online. And currently their policy was really, face-to-face selling at the teller. So there as well, in the UK, closer to us, they were about nearly to shut down operations because their 500 million pounds income per month was shut down because, yeah, the 190 stores couldn't receive any income and any customer. So how do you survive to these kind of things, and how do you make it up actually to be ready for the next wave? So that's a little bit why we try to contact our customers and try to pitch for the Cloud Pak for automation, because that's really what can make your survival actually through these kind of crises. So who survives and how do you grow? Actually, the companies. So we worked in a study with 1,500 of our customers, and through that study, which was launched in the early pandemics period, was showing that the customers were feeling really the difference between the ones who had already invested into digital, the ones who were planning to do it, meaning that they were not getting the results yet of that, and the ones who had already started were really feeling that in the next 3 years, and we are already half a point of that, would really see the huge redesign, I would say, of the landscape on the market about I will survive and I will actually be getting more out of the crisis rather than the rest of the pack. So that really positions you on the map or kills you on the map, depending on how heavily or not you have invested into digital. I will not go through every single one of the topics of the Industry 4.0, but one of the elements which is interesting here is the fact that the Cloud Pak for Automation is covering many of the aspects of the definition, the very definition of what McKinsey and other analysts are defining as Industry 4.0. And if you look at the Cloud Pak for Business Automation, it's covering at least these elements of how can I recover data extremely fast, put that in context, recovering this from Internet of Things, from my processes, etc., and therefore use that also as a fuel for AI in order to automate things. And one of the elements that we have are part of the portfolio is the human-machine interaction with software bots, for instance. So you can learn from your processes, recover data from these processes and from devices, and use that in context in order to automate human tasks where humans then can really focus on where they make the difference. Same, as I said, in terms of analytics, when you have the data and you cure it through the processes, that means also that you can deliver cured data to AI in order to accelerate where AI can be of interest. Now, even for the customers who were actually starting with their investment in digital, with real programs as such, one of the elements which appeared through the study is the fact that actually 70% of these felt that the COVID would have a huge impact, and that impact would be 1 or 2 years towards their investments. Therefore, that means that doing traditional developments and modernization tracks in that roadmap for digital was heavily impacted. How do you recover 1 or 2 years of efforts when all of a sudden you had to focus or refocus on delivering a context where people could work from home? That means that lots of development were stopped actually, and to recover 12 months takes more than 12 months. So that means that whatever was done into a traditional code development or redevelopment means that now these companies, in order to bridge the gap that was created through COVID, need to go for other ways of developing functionalities and delivering new apps. So that is a little bit one of the elements why actually we do what we do and how we do it, and I will explain that just after. Then the other element as well is the fact that investments were already at that time, at the time of starting the pandemic, not delivering and scaling compared to the expectations. So in 70% of the cases, the digital projects were not scaling or were not delivering in terms of AI investments what was planned. And one of the reasons for that is the fact that, as I said previously, AI is a complex or can be a very complex topic. So either you do AI by crafting everything yourself, meaning having data scientists, having an AI platform with sets of services that you need to set up and instantiate, and then building up your own models, maintain these models, because bias actually is one of the things which appears pretty quickly into these models. So you need to update the models all the time. So the costs actually into getting the first return on investment and then maintain that return on investment out of a scaling time is something which is kind of cumbersome and requires an armada of people really being knowledgeable for this kind of tasks. Now, that's what demonstrates somehow that what we call the piecemeal approach is not really delivering what these investments in a traditional way, I would say, was proving. And that is also one of the elements for which we decided last year to reshape. Last year started surfacing the results. It's already 3 years that we took that decision, but it's really about infusing AI in every single one of the components, and putting AI into a context which was usable right away. So the goal for us was really to go and to deliver an AI-centric platform, in fact. And at the same moment, Gartner came up on the market with that concept of hyperautomation. And funnily enough, we were exactly there. So we created and assembled a platform out of the different technical Lego blocks that we had as part of our automation portfolio. We made one meaningful platform out of that, and we also containerized it because that was the trend, and not only to please customers, but also for ourselves, because the shifts of investments were going from perpetual licenses running on-prem to more running as a service on one side, and that was meaning also moving from the environment and the data center of the customers to a SaaS model where we actually take care of the logistics of the service and the machinery which is in the back. So for doing that and automate the delivery of these services and these platforms in a couple of hours, the only way to do that is to go through a virtualization layer of these apps, and the more modern way to do that was with microservices, containers, and therefore the acquisition we've done 2 years ago of Red Hat was definitely going exactly into that direction. So what is hyperautomation for the ones who doesn't have yet a clear vision over that terminology and which is there to stay? Hyperautomation is in fact part of what the Gartner as analysts on the market are defining as top strategic technology trends. So every year they come up on the market and they define a few technology trends that they believe will be extremely important for CIOs and business owners to focus on. And depending on your vertical and depending on your specific market, some might take more, grasp more interest into your investments or not. But eventually there are some generic ones, and hyperautomation is one of these, which is spanning over every kind of sector and activity. And that is defined as the conjunction of using several technologies which were available in the last decade, but putting them tightly to work with each other. And as you can see here, it's about AI in any shape it can take. Intelligent business process management that IBM had a long history in with two components that we now merge together, which was IBM BPM and IBM Case Manager, depending on if it was more like transactional kind of processes, heavy load kind of machine-to-machine processes, or on the other side, processes that you want the expertise of the case owner, like in insurance, when you have claims, like in governmental agencies, when they have actually to go through a specific set of activities, but they know which might be of interest next or not. So in that kind of story, fusing all that together is already an exercise. That means also that you have to have, in fact, all these technologies at stake, and part of your portfolio, and then you need to actually integrate them with each other, right? Now, that is exactly what we've done, but way before our friends of Gartner actually had started defining this. And what you will see also is that, like for Industry 4.0, what we have put all together into with all these Lego blocks as part of the Cloud Pak for automation is in fact realizing its value through way more than what the definition here of hyperautomation is. And in fact, the return on investment is way broader, but that means also that we support, in fact, many of the other technology trends that you see from Gartner for this year. Now, eventually, and that is maybe a topic also that you will probably hear here and there, is that if you have these technologies working all together, you can build up what we call digital twin of an organization. That means that you have sufficient data on how a specific process is working, how a set of process and activities are feeding all together. You know statistically how long they take, what is coming next, and these kind of things. And therefore, you can start building up what we call the digital twin, meaning that you can have a digital environment which simulates in fact, what your people are doing on a specific set of activities, specific departments, specific processes. And that means that you can then start playing with what-if scenarios. So if I do this, if I have that many people on top, what will be the return on investment that I will get? How faster I can be able to act? How will that impact the customer satisfaction, et cetera, et cetera? So eventually that means that you can start having really a virtual rendition of your operations, of your business operations, and you can start also planning more accurately, I would say, the return on investment and where you could start thinking on the next project and the next initiative that you would take for automation. So looking now at, if I open the box of IBM's digital toolkit, which is the Cloud Pak for business automation, what you will see is we are seeing back these stories of the Hyperautomation definition. And indeed, you have AI in the shape of machine learning, of natural language processing, of deep learning, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, you have workflow, as we said, with the merger of two unique sets of capabilities, which is IBM BPM and Case Manager altogether, which is now called, that assembly, I would say, of the two packages is called IBM BAW, Business Automation Workflow. Of course, you have RPA with our partnership with Automation Anywhere, and now for a year with our own technology through the acquisition we've done of the RPA vendor WDG, but we also go beyond what, if you look at RPA, in fact, what RPA usually does, because it embeds, for instance, its own full set of OCR capabilities. It gives the ability to, it has also inside the RPA engine IVR capabilities, meaning that you can have, automated systems, voice systems. You can have, there is text to speech, speech to text as part of that, meaning that you can build up your own Google Assistant in context of your business. And we can also act as a telephonic, as a phone central, in fact, with, these kind of scenarios, type 1 for this, type 2 for this. All that inside one single technology, which again goes beyond what you usually find mostly on the market with RPA. Now, all that is, of course, striving to low code, meaning, and we said that previously, if you want to bridge this gap of 12 to 24 months of investment in the traditional developments, the only way is that you need to start accelerating somehow your investments and your applications and your go-to-market, right? So one way of doing that is by engaging with low-code renditions of our technical bricks, and that's what we done already for the last 2 years, is delivering as part of the different technical components that we had, specific low-code versions of these, which are assembled and that you can call actually and build up applications by instantiating them into a low-code environment, into a studio where it's really drag and drop of features and configuration at 80% rather than having development and developers requirements. But if you look at all the blue which is there, all that is part of the same box and goes beyond what Gartner nowadays is calling hyperautomation. So you have cognitive capture. Again, AI is there, but in context of your eyes. So we will be gimmicking what human eyes are doing and how we interact by having inbound streams of information that we can analyze and therefore define a context for a specific request. We also store the information. We have one of the best engines in terms of content management, FileNet, being being part of that. We have a decisions engine, a business rules engine, which is unique also in there. And we have now, since 2-3 weeks, we finalized the agreement of the acquisition of MineVenio, which gives us not only process mining, but also rules mining and task mining. So that means that the system, by plugging into your IT and business environment, can start using AI, deriving what the design of a process is, how people actually and objectively are working, by analyzing what they do into CRM, into your own line of business applications, into your ERP, etc., by analyzing the logs, but also by analyzing what they do day by day on the desktop. So we have agents which will monitor what people are doing. And of course, if you monitor what people do and you monitor how the systems in fact are interacting with each other, how a transaction is starting into a CRM system, calling for or reporting, I would say, what a human being has done, or one of your customers, one of your citizens have requested, and then going into making an offer into the ERP system, or going then after for releasing an invoice, etc., and at the time that it will take to pay that invoice and all that. I mean, at some point you can derive the process, okay? You know who does what at what time, and you can also start looking into the details of mostly what I'm doing is following that happy flow. But then what I'm seeing is that if the amount is bigger than that, I go that route. If it's lower than that, I go that route. And therefore, that if statement between the two is probably a rule. So I can derive rules as well. And by watching what I'm doing on my machine and seeing the same sequence happening again and again, I can probably define that these steps all together are part of a process which might be candidate for robotization. And therefore, if I know that these steps are working all together, by analyzing the way that they are carried on the screen, I can probably also create the bot automatically. So that is really the vision that we are building up, which is what you might see in the next coming months, is the fact that the process mining and task mining engine will be or should be able to define the skeleton of a robot automatically. So if you say, okay, this is indeed a bot candidate, build me the bot out of that, it will be able to create the bot for you. So that is really where we go. On top of all that, or I would say based to deliver these functionalities, these are based on, as I said previously, containers. Why? Because we want that to be happening extremely fast, to be able to provision, maintain also these applications extremely fast, and containers is the best way you can do that. And finally, the Cloud Pak for Business Automation, as I said, is spanning over and supporting initiatives into many other of the top strategic trends of Gartner. Now, if I open the Cloud Pak for Business Automation, what will I see? On the basic layer, you get, as part of the same license, the Red Hat OpenShift platform, in fact, so the containers platform from Red Hat. Then on top of that, we are delivering the sets of key capabilities of IBM through a set of Cloud Paks. So there is not only one Cloud Pak, there are several. And in fact, starting this year, we went from what we were calling previously the Cloud Pak for Automation, and we rebranded that as Cloud Pak for Business Automation. Why? Because in fact we have created other Cloud Paks for automation aside of the one that I was already pushing. And this very specificity, I would say, of the one that we are talking about today is that it's really striving at business processes, right? But what we realized also by speaking to our customers is the fact that there are lots of other candidates for automation as part of an organization, and depending on your vertical business, depending on how heavily you rely on one or the other topic in terms of IT, you might need specific needs as well to be covered by a specific Cloud Pak. And therefore, we came up with that umbrella of IBM Automation platform, which is today composed of 4 Cloud Paks for automation. The Cloud Pak for Business Automation that we'll be speaking and more digging into today. You have Watson IOPS, which is in fact using AI and the Watson technologies, but specifically for automating IT operations. Okay, so it's really, I would say, the partner in crime somehow of the business automation Cloud Pak, but that really speaking to business processes, and this more specifically looking at how can I make sure that this can be delivered by having as much of the IT ops being automated through AI. Okay. Like for instance, if you look at what we do with the mine venue process mining feature, that will be rendered here more or less into from an IT perspective with Instana, which will do observability onto all my IT processes, being able to derive the fact that resources are scaling up onto this kind of service on this specific application and server, and therefore I might need to add up more resources and have therefore a predictive vision on how my IT services and IT landscape is running and what potentially might occur in the next future in order to avoid that the systems are falling, right? So here, that's exactly what we do as well with the operational intelligence and with the with the set of process tasks mining, which is here under. Now, one of the elements which is interesting, and you will see that spanning over the all sets of Cloud Pak. So Cloud Pak for integration is really serving the purpose of IT modernization and application modernization, I would say specifically. So it's really meant for developers. That is really giving you the tools for accelerating the traditional developments, I would say, of applications, as well as here we have a new one, which is also the network automation, and that is mostly, I would say, that's the baby brother of Watson IOPS, but this is really focusing at automating telco companies, I would say, and heavily network operations. So through all of them, and any customer running today any of these Cloud Paks today have access now since start of this year to what we call the Automation Foundation. That means that by activating CPU licenses of any of these Cloud Paks, Automation Cloud Paks, they will have access to several technologies and components which are spanning over, and they can activate them. Okay, so if today one of your customers, or if you are an end customer yourself, have already the Cloud Pak for integration, you can go and directly speak to them and speak about potentially augmenting their capabilities with process mining, with Mine Venue, or activating through their license of the Cloud Pak for integration, the RPA story that we have now with IBM RPA. So that means that it spans and it broadens up somehow for the partners that we have, the business partners that we have, the integrators of your, to not only focusing on customers with the business automation Cloud Pak, but also potentially to the ones looking at other investments in terms of automation for the IT purpose as well. Okay, now all that, as we said previously, is running with the Red Hat OpenShift license delivered out of the box. That doesn't mean that necessarily you need to run on Red Hat. If some customers make the choice at some point to go for another stack, as long as it's compatible, I would say, with the standards of Kubernetes, they will be supported. The only thing is that what you need to know is that as part of all these Cloud Paks, IBM delivers the Red Hat OpenShift license with it. And that means that it's an abstraction layer actually for you guys to run on then any of the physical clouds in the back, starting with a private cloud of the customer, but then potentially going over to Google Cloud, Azure, AWS, et cetera, and of course our own IBM Cloud, which is the one that serves the SaaS model of the package. Okay, so this is what we are zooming on, and that is a little bit what changes from now on, I would say, to in terms of design in the slide decks that you were maybe seeing in the past with us, which was somehow this IBM Cloud Pak for Automation story, going now to this kind of design. Why? Because one of the elements which is now changing is that automation foundation, which is, I would say, spanning over the different elements. Another story which is interesting here with the automation foundation is that we are bringing some harmony into the different development environments, and that means also that through the automation foundation you will be able in the next releases of the Cloud Paks to more naturally, way easier, I mean, in a much more easier way to call on services of the different Cloud Paks. So this automation foundation will bridge, in fact, if you will, the different capabilities with a more integrated look and feel in terms of the development tools, and it will be aware of the other services of the rest of the Cloud Paks. Now, I will probably pass a few of the marketing slides, but the one of the elements which is extremely interesting here, which is really foundational, I would say, for the way that the Cloud Pak for Business Automation is articulated and thought through for the future as well, is that it's really helping customers going from discovery, process discovery, task discovery, to taking the right decision. So it's really fueling, I would say, and empowering customers into defining the logic of an application, the logic of the business operations, to then activate the organization, being it with really that concept of hybrid workforce. So what we will be blurring more and more from now on is the ability to have processes spanning over and changing hands from robotic hands to physical hands of the users. So actioning, in fact, the content that and the information, the data that we gather through the discovery phases of a project, and the decision logic which is defined in these phases, and then using that for activating, in fact, the organization. And by activating, so by running the processes and centralizing all the data into one central data lake, which is delivered with a component that we call BAI, Business Automation Insights, which is rendered on top of the Elastic Stack. That means that every single one of our services is pushing near real-time or real-time data into that data lake, which is then perfect for us to run the AI engines that we have in the back in order to derive automation optimizations and automation, I would say, recommendations. Okay, so the goal is really, by using the platform, as I said previously, is to put whatever is happening and captured through the usage of the platform as a fuel for future optimization. And the system will optimize by itself, in fact, by analyzing what's going on. Now, one slide, if I had to do really, elevator speech about what do we do with the Cloud Pak for Business Automation, that is most of the time to someone who has seen that slide and that presentation. That's the slide which is kept in mind, and that's one that I couldn't advise you enough to reuse, either in your interactions with your customers or internal customers if you are a customer yourself. It's really about what is really the Cloud Pak for Business Automation. At the end of the day, it's a set of capabilities which are gimmicking our own senses, so what the human being can do. And because we can digitalize these, that means that we can replace sets of actions of a human being, or completely a human being, onto some activities of a full process. And that means that it translates into recovery of time for human beings to focus on the most complex tasks. So that's really the aim of it, is how can I recover time? And in the pandemics, we've seen that everywhere. It's pity to say, but COVID has been the best seller for digital in the last 18 months. And why? Because when you are in an office running with 10 people, and these 10 people in that department, you have 5 of them out of a sudden being sick, how do you recover every single day where these people were out? It takes weeks actually to recover that gap. So the only way to ensure to be ready for these kind of situations in the future is to ensure that people are really focusing on the tasks that only them can tackle, and whatever can be automated, in fact, at the end of the day, should be a candidate for automation, right? So in order to do that, we have sets of capabilities, and we deliver these capabilities in order to do exactly what a human being does. So if I have some information coming up, I will visually be triggered, or by ears, I will be listening to information, I will hear information, and that should trigger the ability to understand that information. So what I will be doing is first keep that in memory, and depending on the processes, depending on the data, I might be willing to keep that for short-term or long-term, archiving it and apply policies to it. I will secure that access to the information, and what I will be doing as well is then start activating the processing of it to understand what to do with it. And for that, I use my brain, and you have the right brain, which is cognition-based, meaning all the Watson technology that we have potentially interacting with the customer or the citizen in order to gather additional sets of information that might not derive automatically. Then I will also apply logic in the sense of rules. So that's what the left brain is doing, is more structured, I would say, cognition, and that will be able to happen through the business rules engine that we have, ODM, which is an acquisition we've done more than 10 years ago of G rules as an engine, and which is now, that is what is expressed here in green, is delivered as a low-code engine as well. So you have the full-fledged capability, the technical brick of ODM, but you have also now the baby brother of ODM, which is the decision services. So for each of our capabilities, what you will see happening more and more is that they will be delivered, in fact, as sets of pre-built services, low-code services that are actually actionable through the low-code editor, the low-code studio, and that you can really drag and drop to instantiate and right away be able to configure, in fact, applications rather than develop them in a pure play development environment. Then with that information, once I know what to do with it, I will have then to orchestrate activities. So that's where my spine actually is activated. That's where my central nervous system is activated, and I will be starting coordinating activities. And this coordination will span more and more into two types of sets of information. That will happen through, as we said, in an hybrid world. Some activities will be carried on automatically or through robots. Some others will happen by sending them to human beings for them to review. Okay, and that is what we do with the orchestration of the workflow engine. Now, the process mining feature is also there to learn by doing. So we will be able to capture what's going on, and it will be the trigger, in fact, for orchestration. So it will be able to say, look, at 99% of the cases, this is how this kind of process is running. Therefore, by analyzing it, I will be able to see, and that's what process mining does. It shows into red flags and a kind of heat map of your process. What are the steps which are inefficient? Why? Because if I took 100 minutes to carry on a full project, but I spend 40 minutes onto one specific review step, that means that that particular step is taking an awful amount of the overall runtime, and costs therefore, by being blocked, costs much of the process. So therefore, by automating that one, that is then unlocking the value of the process and of the automation that you invest in it, right? We spoke about data cap and automation document processing, which is our, I would say, zero code capture engine, cognitive capture engine. Again, it's in green. Why? Because it's low code, because it's easy to instantiate, and because it's extremely functional in terms of the output that it delivers. Actually, it's the users who create the setup at runtime. So the system is based on deep learning. It knows about most of the standard kind of documents that might trigger processes as part of an organization. It will be able to understand value pairs as part of these documents without having to set up anything manually. But then it will tell you, okay, I recognize that this is an order, this is a PO, this is an invoice, or I didn't recognize this kind of pattern, this kind of documents. Do you want that to create and to render as a pattern from now on? Yes. These are all the data, the information sets that I found, which are the ones that you really think are defining specifically this type of documents, this, and this. So that means that I need to have them for sure before being able to process that type of documents, and therefore these information become critical to be fulfilled before going into the process, etc., etc. So it's really with zero code that by making choices and configuring, in fact, giving answers to questions, that at the end the applications will be built. Now, eventually, all these are backend services. Whatever I couldn't do in a backend story, I will be able to process through RPA, in fact, and that is where actually RPA are the hands, in fact, of the process of the Cloud Pak. Is that eventually I will be able through the robots to gimmick what a human being is doing. The only thing is that whatever the robot can do, it can do it 24/7 without sleeping, actually. So. That's a perfect candidate for preparing overnight tasks, which then can be triggered by human beings in the next morning. Okay, now the rest, I would say that here we are covering most of the Cloud Pak capabilities. That is another view. I would say in terms of the personas, so nowadays that's a very trendy way of interacting with customers and trying to figure out what the personas of a specific process are in order to build up some empathy about where do I fit and what is the value that I deliver for the different people. And if you look a little bit to that, when we start, oops, sorry for that. Okay, so the ops management. The business ops management is really, I mean, the business owners of a process, right? So we are interacting with them, and what they want at the end, when we start on any, when you start as integrators on any project of digital or automation, you start speaking to users. And then that is a path, and I've done it for like 20 years as a consultant, speaking to business owners. You will end up, depending on the amount of people that you speak to, it can take several weeks to design a process to get the rubber stamp and the signature of the business owner on. Why? Because everyone at some point works in different ways, and if you speak to 5 members of the same team, they might have different ways of taking over a specific of running actually a specific process. So at some point, what you thought were rules, by speaking to a second person, you will find out that these rules are more exceptions than anything else, etc., etc. Now, one of the elements which helps you into defining how the process is carried on and to make the design eventually of that process is process mining. And that's the reason why we've made that acquisition of MyInvenio. It's because we come and plug into the systems of the customer, and by analyzing the logs of the most relevant systems, you then gather data which will design the process for you. But not only will it design it at setup phase, what it will be able to do as well is monitoring it. Okay, so that means that if a process is constantly evolving, at some point, what was a red task before might be in green, but then another one might become having an effect of some change into the process, or the context into which a specific process out of a sudden in COVID, for instance, might be triggered, will create red tasks along the way. So the system can not only be, used in order to make the cartography of your process. It can also run as a monitoring tool in order to ensure that you are in line with your KPIs and that there is no issues happening or preventively that you could preventively plan upfront. Then the second point is when you come to the business analyst. Once you have the design, the business analyst will have to review it, will have to potentially extend it with exceptions, etc., that you might not capture in the process mining phase over a set of a few weeks. And then we are actually also with the business rules engine giving some sets of features to model for the business analyst its own logic. Okay, so at the end of the day, whatever you can give to the business to manage, they should do it, because that means that it's IT changes that you don't need to send back to IT in terms of developments in the future. Now, at some point, whatever cannot be happening through low code into a process by a process analyst will have to be triggered still by an IT author or a developer. Okay, so the delta will come at some point to the developers, and over there, of course, we have technical environments that they can build up the requested services on. But there as well, in order to accelerate, as we said, the pace at which we can consume the value of the Cloud Pak for Business Automation, we are delivering low-code renditions of the automation services. Therefore, the developers can start up building up applications way faster than what they were traditionally. And that will deliver then users to the users some applications that by using in their everyday tasks, we will capture in the back what's happening, how they are interacting, what do they do exactly, what is the set of data which is performed and produced through the usage of the application, and we will store that into BAI, the data lake, which then serves as a feedback and reporting the KPIs to the operation management, and you go then for refining by process mining and using the data which is in the operational intelligence, the candidates for the next automation in an iterative process, right? So that's where, if you map that to what we had here previously, you start with the discovery phase. You go for defining the decisions elements of the business logic, so through business rules. Then you will activate them by the runtime of your applications, and the users then will act upon. And then by capturing the data, the resulting data of metadata, which is produced by running the applications, you can then define the optimization path for the next iterations. And all that is, of course, based on some technical bricks which are still there, such as content management, decisions engines, etc., the workflow engine, the RPA engine, and the cognitive capture engine as well. Okay. Voila. That is two recap, I would say, sets of what the different engines are doing. So that gives an overview a little bit of the functional services which are rendered in the back for every one of these. These are the technical bricks, I would say, the traditional technical bricks we've had. Now, what we are also going is accelerating the usage of these and the added value of these by delivering low-code sets of capabilities, and that is really one of the focuses we have for the future, is to render more and more of these capabilities through low code. And when you see just one, I mean, let's just pause and step back for a second. When you see that it took us like a decade to assemble all these sets of capabilities, and when you look only for the last 2 years, the massive set of investment that IBM has done in terms of acquisitions, Red Hat being still today the biggest acquisition in the history of IT, containerizing through that acquisition all our capabilities, and then acquiring just for my specific set of capabilities, that specific Cloud Pak for business automation, acquiring 2 companies like MindVenue and WDG for the RPA part, that means that the Cloud Pak definition by itself, okay, it's still 1 license. The customers who have invested 2 years ago into the Cloud Pak, nowadays, in 1 single year, they get 2 new services, 2 new products which are coming up in their own Magic Quadrant, which are markets of their own. All that is really infused as new products as part of the same Cloud Pak with the same license. Okay, so the return on investment of such a license is through time will grow and grow. Why? Because on one side, for the governmental agencies buying actually the Cloud Pak for business automation, they are now served with a kind of extensive set of features, but we will still do developments, we'll still do acquisitions, and throughout the same license, new capabilities will be surfacing. So that is a constant. We are following a constant development pattern in Agile for delivering at least guaranteed 2 new releases for every of these capabilities every year. Most of the time, it even goes to quarterly releases. So that means that you get really to get new capabilities every quarter. How do you consume that if you cannot automate actually the update process through a catalog and through containers? I mean, that's the reason why we are investing so heavily into the containerized story on one side. But on the other side, the only way for you guys and the customers as well to benefit from these new capabilities, it's not by having people sent for like 3 months into trainings. It's by rendering low-code versions of these capabilities in order to not have to dig into the SDKs and all the API functions of every single one of them. Of course, they will be there. Of course, you can extend these products and these new sets of capabilities by calling them and integrating them through APIs. But on the other side, the strategy we have is to heavily invest into rendering these capabilities into low code that you can assemble through one single studio and that you can really call, depending on if they are present or not, into the environment of the customer, just by actually drag and drop and being presented a list. In fact, a catalog of capabilities that you can then just start initiating by low code and therefore through an approach which is very RPA centric and very, how can I say, where you really use a configuration rather than development, in fact. Okay, so that's it mostly for today. Maybe a couple of elements in terms of how we are seen on the market for that kind of platforms and the services, in fact, that are rendered on the market. GBS at IBM, working with partners on this, is really recognized as top-notch in the assembly of both the Cloud Pak for business automation and the rendition of the value of that Cloud Pak in projects at customers. So we shouldn't be ashamed actually of what we do. We are really seen as visionaries into the assembly of these capabilities and the way that we set them up at customers with our BPs. Now, the other element which is interesting as well is that we were serving customers with POCs, proof of concepts, everywhere since I started, at least in this business at IBM 8 years ago. We were doing POCs, but POC at some point is, okay, you give me the definition of what your application should do. I go back, I work for about a week with my business partner, with our own technical staff, and we come back and we present a demo which is really in context of what you wanted. However, did that take 10 hours or did that take 20 man days to build up because we used, I don't know, a remote facility in India? You wouldn't know. And here, that's really what we are changing this year. We have built up we are heavily investing into this to empower our business partners as well, which is an MVP team. which stands for minimal viable product, which is an agile vision of the world. And the goal is not to only deliver a demo, a customized demo. It's really to go with the customer and the BP, showing the capabilities which are part of the Cloud Pak for Business Automation in context of a specific application that they want to build up. But we do that all together. And the investment should be evenly spread over what IBM, what the business partner and the customer are doing in terms of time, at least. And that means that we define, in fact, what the application should do, what are the tick in the box which will demonstrate that the investment is really, the return on investment is there, and that the business case is positive. What are the feature sets that you really want to see? And then we will deliver that into production environment. So will that be 100% of the application? No, that's not what an MVP is. Most viable product means that it's a product. You can really use it in runtime in production, but it's demonstrating the key capabilities for that milestone. And then you define what are the key capabilities for the next milestone in Agile. So that's how you go from sprint to sprint. But we will go typically for 3 to 4 weeks engagement, free of charge, delivering consultants of IBM. The BPs can then benefit from that for this I would say first project, a core project for the customer to review deeper investments afterwards. But then if we match with a tick in the box all the feature which were to be delivered, then there should be some engagement of the customer also to buy the technology, the minimal set of components required for the process, and to buy then the project with the BP to continue and deliver the full-fledged project at the end. However, that first investment is done free of charge, and we can really demonstrate the most vital, I would say, of the capabilities, as well as seeing what is really the product about. Okay, it's really about demonstrating in real life by collaborating all together into how we build up things. It's not I take it, I do it offline, I bring it back. We are working to the environment of the customer all together through workshops until the MVP is to be released. Voila. So it's 3 o'clock.
Yanis, there is one question before we have the 10-minute break. The question is, don't you miss no-code tech in the Cloud Pak for Business Automation?
No code tech, we have components which are no code. So it's really depending on what you mean by low code and no code. But the point is, and that's a discussion we can have. For instance, ADP based on deep learning is a full no code environment. There is not a single line of code to be created, and it's full runtime definition of an application. So it's really at runtime that a user, and I'm really speaking of an end user, who will define the application by just answering questions in one after the other, and by really configuring stuff without having to write any statement in any development studio. And that's really where we are going more and more. I mean, the goal for us is to skip the requirement for having even business analysts wherever it makes sense. However, you cannot count, I would say, on end users to build up applications fully or complex applications neither. And at some point, it's always the discussion about if you show an environment which is full no code, then out of a sudden you will have, and we have that all the time already with a low code environment, you will have pure play developers saying, yeah, but I want to do that and that and that on top. And then you start, getting off the discussion of the no code to the point where they believe that no code might be really too too limiting for them, or you need to deliver as part of your no-code environment the capability for them, in any case, in terms of a framework in the back, to be extending that as well. Now, again, I agree that that is a trend. I mean, already going for low-code is one. Going for no-code, it's one where we do take already that path for where we believe it's feasible. But our goal, again, as I said previously, because we infuse more and more of new capabilities, the more consumable we can render them towards the customers and towards you guys as integrators, the best it will be. So I gauge that I agree and I concur also with you on the fact that no code might be the way to go next. However, for the moment, I mean, we cannot bridge all the capabilities that we have into a no-code environment out of a sudden. And that would be impossible, I would say, in like 6 to 12 months. So we need to go step by step, and that's what we do already with the low-code approach that we take.
Okay. Thank you, Yanis. So let's take a 10-minute break, and then we will continue with the second part.
Thank you very much.